Okay, so this video is going to go one of two ways. I'm either going to gloss over very briefly subcontractors versus and the different reasons why you would have them, or I'm going to go completely down the rabbit hole. Who knows? We'll see what happens. So I've got a good friend of mine he's at that point in his business now where he's working flat out. He's on his own. He's a sole trader, etc., and he is burning the candle at both ends, and he's getting his fingers burnt. So obviously he's now at that sudden realization. At that point in your business, you've got ultimately three choices. You can either start backing down, sort of turn around and sort of say, you know, I've got enough work as it is. I'm not taking any more work on. I'm going to really knuckle down on pricing. I'm going to knuckle down on the customers that I offer work to, and I'm going to basically not take on any additional work unless it's dead man's shoes, money in, money out. Okay, that's option one. Option two is to take on employees, which is not without its risks. And again, as someone that started a window cleaning business from a bucket and slowly scaled it up to the point where we're at 3 vans and looking at our 4th van, today was actually the first day that we've taken on, first day of a newest employee. So, you know, that's where we're at. But really, when you're at that point in your business for the first time and you're growing over time, you need help on the tools, and you might not have the money to invest in someone full-time at that point. It's something that you build up steadily over time sometimes, and that was certainly the case with us. So what is really the only other option other than those two is to sort of say, right, well, I need someone to come and help me as a self-employed subcontractor. There are numerous people will turn around and say, you can't take on self-employed people to help you in your business. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Sorry, I'm just going to open a window. Oh, warm. Sweating like Diane Abbott doing maths. Anyway, yeah, basically, if you're looking along the lines of having another pair of hands, etc., you can bring in someone who is self-employed. Now, there are two types of subcontractor for tax purposes and bits and pieces like that. Okay, there are your bona fide subcontractor, and there are labour only subcontractors. Both have pros, both have, you know, drawbacks, etc. But an example of a bona fide subcontractor would be somebody who has a window cleaning business, right? And let's say I'm thinking to myself, I need another van on the road, but I can't really afford another van, and I can't really afford other staff. But I can afford to give a proportion of my earnings to someone else to go and service that work, frees me up, and then I can go off and do other things, yeah? So that's, you know, so if you brought in someone who had their own water-fed pole kit in the back of their own van with fuel that they pay for, then you can, you know, agree a set fee, whether that's percentage terms. So, for example, I'll give you 30% of whatever the turnover is, or you could turn around and say, for argument's sake, I'll give you a daily rate. Okay, and that's a matter for you to decide which way you want to go. But at all times, you must remember you have to remain compliant with HMRC. So I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole and sort of go through all the HMRC bits and pieces, and I'm certainly not going to tell you what you should and shouldn't do. But I'm going to give a bit of an insight as to what we did and how you might decide to negotiate that problem, okay? As ever, go down the appropriate channels and get all the information you need from the correct sources. People like HMRC, your accountant, and any HR company that you want to get involved with. Then obviously seek the advice of professionals at all times. Right, okay, take that hat off. There we go. So that's your bona fide subcontractor, and obviously what he would do is he would take either a percentage or a daily rate. He would invoice you for the work that you've done, and you would pay that at an agreed time between the two of you. Then there is labour only. A labour only guy would turn up, for example, and he would, you know, subcontract his labour and his time and operate your vehicle, your kit, etc. And it can be done. And some people will argue with us over this, but genuinely it can be done. Now, whether you decide to go down the route of paying someone on percentage terms, or going down the route of paying them a daily rate, you have to ultimately understand that person, that contractor, is not beholden to you. It's not like it's an employee where you can turn around and say, okay mate, today you're working here, today you're working there, tomorrow you're working here, I need you in for this time, I need you in for that time. Yeah, because here's the thing, that subcontractor has a life as well, and here's the thing, he has the freedom to turn around and tell you, actually I can't do that, sort of thing. When you offer them work, it is an offer of work. It is not simply a case of you ringing someone up and saying, I want you in tomorrow. Okay, aside from the fact that that's quite rude, you can't do it. Okay, because that self-employed subcontractor, be he labour only subcontractor or bona fide subcontractor, has every right to turn around and tell you, no, I'm not doing it. Okay, a self-employed subcontractor, in most cases, can send someone in their place to complete the work. So you have no real control over, who necessarily they get to send, etc. If you want someone to wear your brand or uniform, you can't force them to do it. So, if you've got a self-employed subcontractor, either or, so labour only or bona fide subcontractor, if they don't want to wear your brand, okay, they don't have to. Okay. I would also say as well, you would be well served, as we did. We said to all our self-employed subcontractors that they require to give us a copy of their public liability insurance every single year. And without that, they're not able to work. Because again, you're going from being that one-man band to bringing someone else in. You have extra responsibilities now. So even though they are not employed, okay, by you for tax purposes, you do yourself, I think it's safe to say you could do yourself a lot of favours by taking out employers' liability insurance, because even though they're not employees, they are people you are sending on your behalf to complete work for your business. And so public liability will cover you for things, for accidents and damage, etc., that you cause, but it will not cover them for damage that they cause. And so a belts and braces approach would be to say, I will have my own employer's liability insurance, I will have my own public liability insurance that covers me and my business. The employer's liability will also cover them for work that you send them to do, but also their own public liability insurance will cover them as well. And it's a belts and braces approach. So do with that information what you will, but again, it's one of those, you've got to look at it and the merits of each case. It might not suit you to have someone come in. You might have another van, 2 vans, let's say, but you haven't got an employee in it just yet. You're not ready to take that step just yet. And in some respects, it's a lot easier to sort of turn around to someone who's, for example, a subcontractor to come in and cover that for you in the short term until you're ready to offer a contract and stuff like that, and steady hours and stuff like that. You could all, I'm not going to touch on it just yet, but obviously, yes, of course, for those with that in the back of their mind, yes, you absolutely could offer. Currently, you can offer a 0-hour contract. I don't agree with that, and I'm not going to go into too many reasons as to why, but ultimately, I'm going to go into it. Okay, ultimately, if you're going to offer work out to people and it's regular work and it's pretty certain that there's enough work to justify an employee, really, as a business, I find it hypocritical for you to use 0-hour contracts. That's just my opinion. As a man that once tried to feed his family on 0-hour contracts, I can tell you for nothing, okay, when your employer turns around to you and says, don't need you today, mate, and you're trying to feed your kids and you don't have the same flexibility as a subcontractor, it can be a right kick in the teeth. And so for that reason, and that reason alone, we won't offer anybody a 0-hour contract. If anybody comes to work for us, they will work a 30-hour contract in the week, so they have 6 hours to complete the work, and we don't overburden them, and we don't overload them. That's just the way we do things. But the self-employed subcontractor is a vital part and a stepping stone along the way to growing the business for those that don't have access to monies, they don't have access to lending, they don't have access to finance and stuff like that. It is a means of leveraging other people legally, by the way. You know, I've heard people sort of turn around and say, oh, why would you pay someone cash in hand? Look, we're all grown-ups. We know it happens. We know it goes on. But we also know that if we get caught doing that, you know, there's going to be a massive rod for our back, and the HMRC is the one going to be holding it. So you have to understand at all times, whether you decide to go down the route of, you know, employee or subcontractor, bona fide or labour only, etc., that you comply with all the rules. There are some people out there that will pay cash in hand, can't do that. There are some people out there who will use self-employed subcontractors every single day of the week when they could be using employees, and that's wrong also, because that is in breach. I'm going to bore people now. That is in breach of what's called IR35. I'm not going to go into too many details about that, but ultimately IR35 basically says you cannot use someone as a self-employed subcontractor full-time, okay, with all the benefits to the employer of an employee, but without any of the rights. And there's no holiday pay, there's no pension, there's no you know, sort of employment rights, etc. There's, you know, there's no rights to tribunal, etc., and all this sort of good stuff. You know, it is ultimately, you know, an underhand way of doing things, and you and I probably both know people who are doing this. Doesn't make it right that you know, that a good chunk of people do it. The bottom line is the rules don't flex, they don't bend, okay, and they don't break, because you will flex, you will bend, and you will break before those rules do. If HMRC or the government, of whichever colour you subscribe, you know, they hold the stick, and ultimately you have to do as you're told. So I'm going to leave the video here, and I could probably wax lyrical about this at length, but ultimately, you know, yes, fine, use self-employed subcontractors or bona fide subcontractors, you know, labour only, etc. Use them, but use them wisely, and always know the rules about using them, and get your information from the proper sources. Do not fall into the trap of asking people on Facebook for complex legal answers, right? And yes, I'm aware that I am on social media waxing lyrical about legal matters, etc. Fine. But I would not give anyone advice on what they should do, okay? Only a proper professional should do that, because they are in the right place to do so for your business, okay? I can say what worked for me, okay? I am not here to give you advice on such matters. I am not qualified, nor do I have the brain power to do so. But on that rather contrived bombshell, if you are looking at bringing someone into your business, be they self-employed, subcontractor, or be they an employee, follow the rules, and ultimately you can sleep at night knowing that you are covered. Keep on keeping on.